Hello, ladies, gents, boys, and girls. We're going to be talking about the Fair Credit Reporting Act, FDCPA, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and credit disputes, as well as just recapping my experience with lawsuits against the credit bureaus, because I've only had to sue two companies once, and then there's another one that I had to sue 2 times with the threat of legal action on the 3rd time. So, if you're just now tuning in, that's great. And if you are tuning in later on, you'll be able to check this out in the saved category things. Anyway, give me just a second. I'm aligning everything, and I'm going to be double checking to make sure that you guys can hear me. With every Christmas card I write, may your days be merry and bright. Your day. There we go. Okay, so it does come through. Yes. Alright, we're going to close this out, even though I do love hearing myself. And we are going to be going this direction. Okay. In fact, I'm going to end the screen and jump right back in, so if you're here, stay here. I'll be... Hi. It's me again. I'm back. Alright, so the first thing we need to cover is the FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, well, let's... Give me 1 second. I'm going to make this super easy for you. Just watch this. FDCPA, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Now, how are those two things different? The Fair Debt Collection Practices Act covers just that, collections. So when you're talking about collections, you're talking about collecting companies and the harassing phone calls and reporting to the Bureau, like the initial reporting to the Bureau. But where it gets interesting is like the actual bureaus and maintaining a record on the Bureau is the FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act. And the reason being is, back a few years ago, the Fair Credit Reporting Act had to be revised, and its initial inception had to do with the fact that creditors were saying, "Yes, money!" And the person was saying, "I've never seen you before in my life, sir." And it was just this evil back and forth, and then these alleged creditors, boom, will come right back up on your credit. And they aren't, it would say the alleged creditor, like, for example, Les Schwab or Sears, right? But what was happening in the past was companies were buying the debt and then harassing people. And that's where the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act comes in. So why does this matter to you? I mean, these are just names and a little bit of history, right? Wrong. So I'm going to pull something up for you. And I'm going to give you a couple premises. So this is the format that a lawyer gave me for disputing debt. And these are lawyers that specialize in consumer protection. And essentially what they do is you have to do the initial dispute, and then when the alleged creditor or the credit bureau messes up, that's when they step in, and the government actually pays these lawyers for doing that. But they only get paid by results. They're representing the underrepresented, and the government has a way to pay those individuals, or those lawyers, that still have a heart. So this right here is your first step for disputing any debt. Okay? So all that you're seeing, all that you're seeing over here, over there, that guy. What you're seeing over there, you can take a screenshot of it. If you want to message me, I'm more than happy to, you know, forward it along. And that's not a problem to me. Ooh, let me pull up the Twitch. Okay. So that's not an issue for me, and I'm going to make sure my chat room is open. But I don't mind passing you to Twitch. Okay. There we go. This right here is going to show me when you guys are chatting. I'm still working out the whole Twitch thing. But, so the FCRA, Fair Credit Reporting Act, is where this letter applies. And we're going to focus on the Fair Credit Reporting Act initially, and I'm going to tell you how the FDCPA will benefit you against collectors, and that's going to be later on in the video. But for right now, FCRA and the credit dispute letter. So the credit dispute letter is, well, it's just that. You want to send this out to the credit bureau. You don't want to send it directly to the creditor or the alleged creditor. Notice in here that I say alleged creditor quite a bit. And that's because they are alleged. Now I do say on their original creditor, and let me pull the right here. So we're going to highlight original creditor right there. And I label it as original creditor here. It should be the alleged creditor. Looking at it right now, I'm like, okay, I did that wrong. Because I've edited this several times for several people. But this is almost exactly what was referred to me by a lawyer who does exactly this. Now, I want to walk you through it. So I noticed that you were reporting on name the collecting company. Okay? On my credit, I dispute this debt. Now, you notice it's being stated in the first person. Okay? There is a reason for this. The reason you state it in the first person is because right now it's just you. It's not we, it's not us, it's not this person over here. You want to dispute it as just you, referring to an account that they opened under your name. Now, the 15 U.S.C. Subsection 1692G, you can look that up if you want to. In fact, I might just pull it up because of America. In fact, we're going to keep that here, and we're going to type this into here. Alright, so validation of debts. The reason 15 U.S. Code subsection 1692G and subsection 1692, I think D and H, all refer to the ability to validate debts and the requirement thereby. For example, it's been determined on multiple landmark cases that I got to give you the history of how a credit bureau investigates you. Okay, so you send them this investigation, right? And you go through maybe their website, or you do the phone line like, in 10 words or less, how to describe your debt. Well, I was over here on a Wednesday, and he was over there on a Thursday, and he says I owe him money. So all of that goes into a there is a word for it. There is a internal form that they pass on to the creditor. So the alleged creditor gets a very brief notification, but it's basically a yes or no statement. They forward your dispute. And what the credit bureaus used to do too is, like for example, Experian, which is why Experian doesn't like me right now. They used to limit your word count if you disputed online. And if you're on the phone, they didn't dispute it, but the way it was presented to the alleged creditor would sometimes be truncated. Meaning, hey, it's gone on to this lot. Oh, you exceed the Twitter limit. And it was kind of like that. It was like the Twitter limit. You had to say it in a certain amount of time, otherwise everything after that, out. So you were very limited in how you could explain how to validate the debt. And these collection companies, because it's almost never the company itself, like the original creditor that comes after you. It's always a collection company that represents tens to hundreds of clients. And they truly don't give a damn. Okay? They're the ones that were calling people at 6 o'clock in the morning, calling them broke, calling them just pieces of trash. They were being very harassing. And laws were put into place which are on the FDCPA, but again, we're not going into that. But essentially, when the credit companies would shoot them this little piece of paper saying, hey, this is what they said, is this debt valid? No! Okay, we'll keep it on there. Because, of course, collection companies have a vested interest in taking our money, and we have a vested interest in keeping our money. So naturally, people on both sides were being completely fraudulent. Like, they were just being blatant with it. These people over here, no, I don't know what that is. 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 Yeah, I made 3 payments, but I don't know what that is. And over here, the collection companies were like, no, that's right, that's right, that's right, that's right. Yeah, he's got 10 pieces of paper with it. Oh yeah, those aren't included to begin with. Nowadays, you can include a full dispute with documentation, supporting documentation. It used to be that you would have to mail it, but apparently TransUnion is allowing it to go online, which I found out, and I know Experian has been allowing you to upload documents online. Equifax, I'm not sure about. I haven't had to deal with them for quite a while, and they are happy to not deal with me. I know the people, like if you're in the Northwest region, I know the people that they will send to meet you in court. And I've met all of them at least once, a couple of them twice. So anyway, the FCRA had to be revised because these collection companies over here were saying, no, everything's valid, everything's valid. Yes, 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 yes. I want money, give me money. And then over here, you had people like you and me who were saying, no, that's not valid, that's not valid, that's not valid, that's not valid, hoping that the other side wouldn't respond or be inundated. So what they did in the revisions to the Fair Credit Reporting Act and some of the inclusions is, number 1, you have to, when you send in a dispute, it has to be forwarded on. Now, I need to pull up the landmark case, because there was a landmark case where the credit company, the credit bureau, has to validate, has to do their proper research upon a reinvestigation of debt. Okay, so they have to do an initial investigation where they send off that paper and the other person will still say, yes, true. And more than 9 times out of 10, much more than that, they'll always say yes, every time. No question whatsoever, because they have some low-level intern or low-level basic employee, probably the front desk person, or something equivalent to that, like basically the McDonald's worker with an upgrade. Would you like to supersize it? Well, yes. And you get that McDonald's level customer service, or at least you used to, and you still kind of do. But now McDonald's is based in the Philippines. Which, by the way, if you ever call any of these credit bureaus and you get somebody who doesn't sound like they're from the U.S., ask for somebody from the U.S. You'll get forwarded over almost immediately because, yeah, they're only there to, I think they're there to annoy people, but they're there to essentially be a placeholder. So they'll answer the most basic of questions, and then they will transfer you to the U.S., but so many people ask that they don't even fight back anymore. They just transfer. But anyway, going back to the landmark case, there was a person who, it was Massachusetts. Gosh, what is it? So it was Massachusetts Credit Bureau, which eventually turned into Equifax. So this was Equifax before it was Equifax. And the person who was actually friends with a bank, with the CEO or CFO of a bank, ended up saying, okay, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Here's all of the documentation. And they forwarded that to the credit bureau, who forwarded it on to the creditor and so on and so forth. And the creditor wanted to, of course, keep collecting, and the credit bureau didn't do any deeper investigation. So what the judge awarded, I believe it was the 13 U.S. Supreme Court, I think it was in Georgia or Connecticut. I think it was one of those two. So what they ended up deciding was that when you have a directed re-investigation, because you have the first investigation, which is this cursory, it's kind of like shaking hands, now get the F out. But when you actually go into it and you see the, when you have direction, when you have these documents, or when somebody says, okay, look right over here, it's right there. No, it's right there. Just call this person. And when you have that kind of direction and you don't reinvestigate, at that point it falls upon the liability of the credit bureau. Basically, they are liable for damages. And usually it's a fine, but I read 1 or 2 cases where it was pushed to have them cover the entirety of the debt or to erase the debt entirely. And in this case, the debt was erased entirely. So the credit bureau did have to pay for the legal fees for this very wealthy gentleman, which was inconvenient. They had to pay the fines, and they had to take the item off credit. Okay, this was a landmark case, and I wish I had thought ahead and gotten that case up for you, because I would love to outline it. But essentially, that set the landmark for reinvestigation. So your first dispute is basically, I don't know what this is, or this is the wrong amount, and so on and so forth. But then a reinvestigation is where that letter I just sent you came from. So let's pull this up. Boom. This right here, that should be your initial dispute. No, I don't want to change that. Oh yeah, it's GB, and I think GH. Or maybe it was just H. Anyway, sorry, I'm looking at this section right here, which you can see on the screen I'm highlighting. That section right there, very important. Oh, I'm going to have to look it up. And Lamb versus M&M and Associates. Let's check this out. Boom. SCOTUS blog. Okay. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. Distributed conference. Alternative. Okay, so requires courts to determine whether an alternatively phrased statute represents alternative means or alternative elements, and whether, pursuant to this analysis, Michigan's unarmed robbery statute. Okay, that was something entirely different that we're not going to get into. It was relevant, and there is relevance in that to what I included. But it did have to do with, yeah, this did have to do with backgrounds and so on, but I think I pulled up the wrong article. But this right here, I'm going to walk you through this letter now that you understand where the reinvestigation versus investigation comes from. Okay? So this section I'm going to highlight in yellow. This is just kind of a generic phrase or a generic of the letter that you should send. Now, if I were to delete this, it would be just as effective. That was left over from when I was doing a reinvestigation. Now, why is this important? Because if you were to put a reinvestigation inquiry right here, where I'm highlighting, you'll see the reason this debt is invalid is because I have... You know what? I'll go to Culligan Water because I hate that company. Because I left my cooler in the front office after multiple attempts to have it picked up. Now that was a legitimate thing, and that was a legitimate dispute that I had to have reinvestigated. And the reason being is they weren't picking it up. I was about to move out, and I gave them months of communication prior to moving out saying, hey, come pick up your cooler that you dropped off. I don't want to buy the water anymore. And they were trying to charge me about $700 for the water cooler. Just one of those little home ones that you have. And they were not moving. They were not moving in one way, shape, or another. They were very, very obtuse. And you'll find that with a lot of creditors. The smaller the company that you did business with, the more of an asshole you're going to, the more assholic, yeah, the more assholic they're going to be when it comes to communicating with you. They're going to be brushing you off. They're not going to want to do any due diligence or research. And they'll promise you to do that, and then they'll just keep it up, and it'll stay on your credit. So what I ended up doing was I told them that I had this, and I'm not going to write down for you to see the place where I was renting, but I happen to know the front office people exceptionally well. In fact, I almost got hired there back years and years ago. But because the credit bureau had this, and I'm sending this to the credit bureau, the credit bureau, they are obligated to search a little bit deeper. The more detail you give, the deeper they're going to have to research. Now, if you can include copies, never give an original, but if you have copies of receipts, if you can print out emails, if you can take screenshots and print out text messages in certain cases, any sort of recourse or evidence to support your cause, include it with this and either mail it in or attach it on their internal website. For TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, you can do that with all of them. But this letter right here shows that you have done some research, and this letter right here also shows, number one, you can put right here, this says your name, you could put your name, and you could say, like, instead of this, you could put V, you could also put BS, or you could just leave it like this, and you put the collecting company's name. You do not put the original creditor's name. You do the collecting company, because on your credit report, it'll show the collecting company. And that's a big thing to know. That's really important, because if you're going after and you're naming the original creditor doesn't always show up as the original creditor. So they can, the credit bureaus can actually state, okay, you list over here as Fire Depot, but under this creditor, this collection agency, it'll say who they're representing on your credit report, and beside that, it'll say like 15 Fire 21667 or whatever internal jargon they use. Well, if you named the wrong company, the credit bureaus won't know who to send this to. I mean, they can guess, and sometimes they do guess and they do it, but if there's anything that comes back on you for it, or if you have to go after them legally to get this removed, then that just stands against you. You'll lose any day of the week, and they will gladly take you to court because you're going to have to pay for their legal fees, and so on and so forth. Or at least they could push for that if they wanted to. Now, let's see here. So you sent in the original letter, and of course the collection company says, no, it's better. And then you sent in the dispute, and you have evidence. You got this. You know exactly where to point them, but it still doesn't work. Going after the original creditor is usually the most prudent action, but at the same time, it's also the most challenging one, because you're going to get a bulldog on the other side of that table. And if you are going to go after them in any legal standing, what I did is I went to small claims, and the reason being, you notice I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm saying what I did, my opinion, what I think. That's because I'm not a lawyer. I'm very successful in pro se litigation. I've won 8 out of 9 cases, and the 9th case was when I actually hired a lawyer, and that was back in Florida against a company called Freight Center that I highly, 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 highly suspect bought the arbitrator, which is why I will never go to arbitration, and you should never go to arbitration with any of these credit bureaus. The reason you should never ever go to arbitration, never, is because you, small person, them, big company, and a lot of people are going for these big companies, but a big company or you can request that an arbitrator be removed or not be selected before arbitration begins. Well, if they've had experience with this person and that person weighed against them on more than one occasion, then that lawyer who is acting like judge and jury, because that's what arbitration is. They take a lawyer and they say, hey, you want to be a judge? Like, we'll do a pretend judge thing. What do you think? What do you think? Ah! And they take this lawyer and turn them into essentially a judge that can usually supersede a judge. Because arbitrations in almost any contract you sign are final and binding. Those are very hard to get overturned, and judges, if you go into court to try and overturn them, they will not want to talk to you. They will immediately walk in with a bias. And I know judges, they're not supposed to have bias. Yes, the hell they do. because half the judges in the United States are elected and half are appointed-ish. It's give or take on those. But the elected ones that aren't appointed, they don't necessarily have to be properly credentialed. And if you ever want to doubt me on this one, drive really fast in front of the Santan Justice Court. You're going to meet Samuel T. Goodman, who operates in a court without record. He is the only court of the 4 courts in the building that does not accept faxes, unless it's convenient for them to do so. And he will make fun of you in front of the entire courtroom if you try to argue anything. His opening statement is, and I quote, "Judges are glorified tax collectors. If you are trying to argue anything in this courtroom, or if you are trying to argue your case, don't. All we have to do is uphold the law. That is our single responsibility. We are glorified tax collectors. Now calling." And yes, that was verbatim. I will never forget hearing a judge say that. Samuel T. Goodman, Santan Justice Court. If he was appointed, then I would hate to know who appointed him and to see their judicial record. And there are plenty of judges like that out there. Plenty of them. Okay? So when you walk in saying, "I lost arbitration, but I don't think it was fair," well, you're not going to get anywhere with them. You're going to need a lawyer for them to even listen. Otherwise, they will throw it out because they know you won't have enough knowledge to be able to say, "You can't do that legally. You have to hear my argument. You have to hear my case." Well, they're going to tell you they don't have to. And they're going to ignore you, and they're going to move on. They're going to call somebody else, and so on and so forth, because they're going to act under the assumption that you have absolutely no power. And that false bravado, that is a very powerful tool. I used to work, in fact, I still work in politics, brand image development, PR, and that is a very, very effective tool. I've taught some of my clients how to use that tool very well. You just walk under presumption. I mean, hell, that's what Trump does half the time anyway. All right? Back to the topic at hand. So, if you go to arbitration about the credit bureaus, these lawyers get paid per each arbitration. And if they piss off this bureau that they're going to have to arbitrate for in the future because other people don't know what you're learning right now, they want to get paid. Lawyers want to get paid. When have you met a single lawyer that didn't want to get paid? When? Name one time. I know lawyers personally. I have a lawyer right now that doesn't really have me on retainer, and I don't have her on retainer, but at the same time I manage her website, and I'm still waiting on her to get off her ass and actually do anything. And I'm strongly thinking about firing my lawyer and getting another one. The problem is the companies I'm going against, no lawyer wants to go against them, and I wouldn't stand a chance in court. And all of my claims are above the small claims limit. So breaking back down, you want to go to small claims. Now some states, you don't want to go to arbitration because the lawyers don't want to piss off their money source. They don't want to piss off the credit bureaus who can request another arbitrator. And that's just not how lawyers work. And that's not how credit bureaus work. I've been on the phone with a member of the AAA. She was on the phone. And I was talking to the lawyer with the other side. Okay? And that was against a tax company that I'm under obligation per the settlement not to talk about directly. But I will say that it is the biggest company for tax software in the nation as of 2007. Now, if you want to research that, go right ahead. I can say that within rights, okay? But, yeah, that company was... that arbitration was interesting. And they admitted to... Whoop, I need to fix this. Because I'm just now seeing it on there like, no, no, give me the green screen. But they admitted during the call to ex parte communication. Now, what ex parte communication means... what ex parte communication means is they are communicating outside of the natural scope. Like, you're not supposed to communicate with the lawyer Come on. Come on. Get. Alright, so I need to adjust my green screen. But anyway, ex parte communication is essentially where both parties need to be involved in the conversation with blank. So whether it's the judge, the arbitrator, the AAA people. So it doesn't matter what it is. But ex parte is when these two individuals are supposed to be talking to this individual at the same time, but one of them doesn't. See what I did there? That's exactly what they do. They both admitted it. The company's representative and the arbitrator admitted to ex parte communication. And that disenfranchised me, which was not nice, but they ended up settling because I wasn't going to back down and I was going to hold the arbitrator's feet to the fire. And I've seen arbitrators bought. I've represented clients that went out of their way and told me later on that they had bought the arbitrator, and because the contract that I even typed up saying I can't talk about Jack, well, I can't really talk about that. Like, not directly. But I could talk in a circle. So, you want to take them to small claims. Now, what's going to happen in a lot of small claims cases is the judge will order you into mediation. Now, a mediator is somebody who's going to sit down with both parties and try to talk it out and try to mediate between the two to find common ground so they can settle and not waste the judge's time. Because judges, they are extraordinarily self-important. And when I say extraordinarily, apparently they are worth the sun, moon, and stars. I have not met a single judge I liked. Not once. Not yet. Hopefully one day, but not yet. So what they're going to do is send you to mediation, and then if you come to terms, then you admit that, and they will type up right then and there the settlement terms. Okay, and I don't recommend that you try to do it. Leave it to the mediator, because if you don't have fluency in legalese, then you will be horribly disenfranchised during the negotiation. The terms will be laid out very clearly in an understandable manner, and then you can choose to accept them or to negotiate or whatever works. Now, if you haven't read the FCRA or the FDCPA, then don't go to court. I emphasize, read the FCRA per disputes and reinvestigations. It's on this letter. Take a screenshot. Copy it word for word. But read these articles. And then look those articles up and type the words case law. I will show you how to do this. Okay? I highlight this. Control C. Or, you know what? I'm going to show you. Right click. Copy. Woo! Okay, and I'm going to type, and then I'm going to highlight that, right click, control, paste, right? Then we type in case law. And if you see anything like Riggs versus Prober Raphael, this is fine law, case law, okay? I know this site very well. They are exceptional. But anything that said, oh, here's my jam. Here's my jam right here. Look at this. law.cornell.edu. I love this site. This site right here, it makes me tingly inside. Because they will outline, as you can see, this, oh my gosh, they need money. I'm actually going to donate the 15 because, yeah, that's very important. So this covers right here 15 code validation of debts. What this is going to do is this is going to list out what that article is. But you can also go to subchapter. Boom! Look at all this. Look at that. Then we go a little bit further. Go into chapter 41. Credit reporting agencies, credit repair organizations, restrictions on garnishment. That's if you get sued yourself. And, oh my gosh, you see how beautiful law.cornell.edu is? This is my #1 a go-to. And if you don't understand a word in there, I want you to go to Black's Law Dictionary. I'm going to type that here. So, Black Law Dictionary. Now, the reason you do that is there are quite a few on here. Like, it's going to be one of the older versions. But the U.S. Supreme Court has listed the Black's Law Dictionary as a secondary authority to them. Meaning it's so thorough and so concise and so accurate per definition of whatever word they're describing or term that the U.S. Supreme Court falls back to them for clarification. You understand that? This is a hugely important tool. So if you're trying to get to understand the codes and so on, this right here is your jam. Okay, you just type this in, you find the law.cornell.edu, and this website right here will break down every section, subsection, chapter, code. I mean, it's beautiful. But you're also going to find case law. So, for example, let's go back. And you can click on any one of these words. For example, debt collector right here. You see how it's not just like the little regular thing, but it actually takes you, this will take you to a link. And if I do this, this right here defines debt collector. Now this definition might be a little bit different than Black's Law Dictionary, so when in doubt, lean towards Black's Law Dictionary. That is a rule of thumb that I use. And again, I'm still covering my ass by saying, I'm not giving you legal advice. But Black's Law Dictionary is the jam. Now, if I wanted to, let's say, this right here is validation of debts. Riggs versus Prober Raphael. Okay, find law is not bad. Find law is not bad. It's not as concise as if you see anything that says, like Riggs versus Prober. Let's check this out. We're going to highlight that. Hit. Okay, search go. Let's see. We're going to do that, and we're going to say Cornell. Okay, law.cornell. This right here, this lists it out. Let's see, Riggs, and this is a little bit more concise. It's a little bit easier to digest than the other site, but these are just the notes. Okay, this is more concise, and when you go here, you see there's a lot more, well, actually not a lot more said, but it's more in-depth, whereas the Cornell is more of a high level. So you can get, okay, this is what they started with, and then just jump straight, this is what they decided on, and then if you find that pertinent to what you're trying to study or what you're trying to prove, that's when you go into the middle and you say, oh, wow, this is how they came to that conclusion. That's important. But we're going to talk about actually suing the credit bureaus on another video because that's going to be a couple hours unto itself. Let's go into, so we got the FCRA and the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Credit bureaus are required to do a proper reinvestigation. Okay? FCRA reinvestigation case. 1681I, like at this point, we've already seen 3 different subsections, so 1681I, A, G, D. So at this point, you just want to read subsection 1681, period. And really read it. Take some time, you know, grab a cup of coffee or some tea, and really go into it, alright? Because that's going to be super important. This one right here, this is Ellis Law Group. And they're usually pretty good, but consumer.ftc.gov, this is actually going to go into that case. 11th Circuit course. Furniture investigation. We're going to click right on this because I think this is going to take us exactly where I want to go. Excuse me. This is the last time I eat Burger King because I'm burping up like crazy. No, that's not enough, but it gives you some ideas. Actually, this is a good clarification, and you see right here, boom! Henkel versus Midland Credit Management. No, it says her, and it was a him that I was originally talking about, but I do remember reading about this case. And Reasonable investigation. Oh, I think the other one too. Like, you see how I type just that case in? You see how it's up here, and you're seeing all these different cases. For example, 15 like Terry Hinkle versus Midland Credit Management. I think that's the one that I was actually talking about, because that was the landmark case. And then the other case, oh yeah, Terry Hinkle. Oh, okay, that's her. Well, what about the he? But you see all these different references, and for example, court listener docket and all of that, you can get the exact minutes. Okay, you can even go in, look it up, you can find out which court it was heard in, and you can look it up and you can listen to the actual court, because this is a court of record. And that means they have somebody over here on the side, you know, typing it out and making sure that every letter is, like, every word is there. But you also have a recorder, like microphones, and they are gathering everything. Usually you have video too. And they are saved on the website for up to 7 years, or they can be saved for longer. It very much depends. Don't quote me on the 7 years being the restriction for record management within a court system. Like, don't quote me on that yet. But basically, all of these say one thing. Credit bureaus, when given a direction with which to research, must do more than asking the furnisher of the information, which is the alleged creditor or the collection company. They have to go beyond the furnisher of the information to reinvestigate. So they actually have to do some actual work. That's rough, isn't it? They have to make a few phone calls, because at that point it becomes negligence on their behalf if they don't do that and they are wrong. But again, you still have to prove it in court, and that's something we're going to get into later on. I'll show you how to do it, and I'll show you when you really do need a lawyer and you shouldn't be doing it yourself. Dang. No more Burger King. But now that you know they have to do that, we go back to our credit letter. Again, take a screenshot or ask me if you want a copy. But this credit letter right here, in this section and in this section, you can change it up to appropriately fit your situation. And don't worry about being eloquent, okay? All of these different things, like this right here, and this right here, and this right here, which we're going to go into that in another video, because we don't have that much time today. But all of these right here show them, okay, yeah, those are actually applicable. People inside the industry that will be looking at this will say, oh, yeah, that actually makes sense. All right, let's do our job. Because nobody wants to do extra work, right? Credit bureaus, they don't want to do investigations. They're just like, hey, we were two, but now we're one. And it's very much like that. They very much give you the finger up until you legally threaten them or you set precedent, which I've set precedent with a company called TransUnion. It's one of the 3 credit bureaus. Well, I've set precedent with all 3 because I've taken them all to court and I forced them all to settle. And when I say forced, I mean that was me being generous to them. In retrospect, definitely with Equifax, I should have just ignored the mediation and gone straight to trial, because they would have lost their asses, and I would have won their ass. But one thing you have to watch out for too is if you ever sue them, forget about disputing online. If you do anything legal to them, forget about disputing online. They're going to flag your account, and they're going to make sure that no matter when you call, no matter how you contact them, it goes straight to their legal team. Because if you took them to court once, unless you lost, but even then, if you took them to court, they have to fly somebody out, hopefully not Marquita, and then they're going to... I didn't like her. She's just horribly obtuse. She doesn't know what she's talking about, and she repeats the same thing over and over and over again. Again, I should have just... And I'm not going to tell you what bureau she's with. There's been more than one time that I should have just gone all the way through. But I didn't want to bother with it. It was a waste of time. It was some simple accounts that, honestly, for the hours I spent, I probably should have just paid them off and said, F you! But I didn't do that because on principle I wanted to get them removed entirely, not just show as paid, because they shouldn't have been there. But that's a whole nother story. Hold on 1 second. Anyway, so what ended up happening was they settled. But if you ever sue one of those companies, they are going to red flag your account. And once they red flag your account, you are going to have to go through a legal team from then on forward. And usually it's leaving a message on their machine like I did yesterday, and you'll get a call in the morning if you say your words right, like I did this morning. And they'll say, oh, well, we'll look into it, and we'll see about removing this restriction. But that's... I don't hope to shout that they're going to do it. The one thing you can count on about humanity is they will do the absolute least amount possible in order to get you the hell off their back so they can do something else. True story. It doesn't matter what company. Point to a company, I'll point you an employee. They'll do exactly that. Usually within 10 minutes. But then again, psych profiling, PR, brand image development, that's kind of my field. So, you send in the reinvestigation. What next? Well, the other side has to validate that debt. And if they don't do so appropriately, and there's nothing, you know, being... Like, you're just going to get a letter saying, oh, well, we still first, valid. At that point, if you feel that the credit bureaus haven't done any sort of proper reinvestigation, which you can start questioning them on, and so on, or you could send another letter, then, yeah, you can take them to court. And usually they'll bend, usually, and this is my personal experience, they will make you take them to court. They will sit down and they will usually settle in mediation for less than what you want, but more than what they want to give. And they have dedicated people to doing that. Marquita was pretty awesome. Miss, gosh, what is her name? This is at Experian, and she's actually a really, Mary at Experian. She is a pretty awesome person. I like her. She's very professional. She's very curt, but I like her. She's cool. Let's see, what else? How else should I go about this? So, you send that in, and they have up to, the alleged creditor has 30 days to respond. Now, if you want to sneak one by, a tactic that a lot of people use is during the Christmas season, especially around, what's another holiday? July 4th. So right around holidays, if you timed it to about 20 days, to arrive 20 days before that holiday, people would sneak by because these companies would just be inundated. But any major buying season, such as Valentine's Day or Christmas, those are awesome times because people are on vacations and they just can't keep up with the workload. This has been, and this is again where the FDCPA comes into play. And I'm going to cover that in just a second. We're going to be going for about 45 minutes more because we're going to cover the FDCPA. For right now, this is just how you dispute. And the next time I broadcast, I'll tell you how to enforce a dispute. So that would be taking them to court. That would be any legal action. But this is initially what you got to do. Okay, take a screenshot. Take a screenshot of this bad boy, or ask me for it. I will email it to you. Do whatever. Okay, but this is what you need to send in. And again, the highlighted section, which I'm going to highlight these sections too, this one right here, doesn't need to be there unless it's a reinvestigation. Now, how should you dispute? If you're not doing it online, you should never, ever do it by phone. And if you do it online, you must be able to attach documents. Even if this is the even if they say, hey, type out your complaint. Alright, fine. Copy, paste, whatever they'll allow you to, and then attach this exact document to that, plus whatever evidence you have. Because that right there basically lets them know, okay, this is how we're going to do it. But your very, very first dispute, all that yellow section, leave it out. Any explanations, any details, just say you dispute it, it's invalid, or I don't know what it is, fraudulent, and so on. Now the catch with fraudulent is, if you say the word fraudulent, there will be a fraud alert placed on your account. You will not be able to pull up your your credit report from that bureau unless you call that bureau directly, and usually you have to pay them. But you are allowed one free credit report per year. And I'll show you where to go for that. We are going to go to annualcreditreport.com. Yep-a-da. Now, what's important about annualcreditreport.com is request your free credit reports. You can do that once per year, but again, if you put fraud in or if you claim fraud in any way, shape, or form to the bureaus, this site won't work, because they will have a block and they will force you to go through them. They will force you to talk with their teams, because they want to be as much in the know as possible if you're coming after them. That's just a cold, hard fact. But they also want to protect their own asses and the asses of their clients, the collection agencies. It's very complicated, but the end-all be-all is, before you do any disputes, run your credit report. That's going to tell. This one right here is not like Credit Karma, okay? Now I'm going to take you to Credit Karma right now. Oh, I love this. Atlas Law Group, and I love how they're succinct and they start quoting and they give you case law like Safeco Insurance versus of America versus Burr. Like, I love, like, sorting through these types of sites. 11th Circuit 1985, and you got Rush versus Macy's New York. Okay, these right here are cases that you should be reading. And that's why you open up these little things, is they will quote laws, they will explain the laws, and just these articles and blogs from these legal groups, they're going to guide you in the right direction. That's where I got my research from. I started reading through these and then looking up every damn one of these cases. I've read every case, front to back. I've spent years looking into this, teaching myself. You can too. But let's go to Credit Karma so you can see. Now, I do have a Credit Karma account. This is my personal email. I don't care if you have it or not. And then you log in, and you can see your entire credit report. I'm not going to show you mine because it's not redacted. I might clip this, put it on YouTube, and then clip in something else showing a redacted credit report so you can see what it means. But where you want to go is you want to go to Accounts. Now, the accounts are going to show you everything. The ones that are paid off and closed, the ones that are still open and good, and the very bottom, derogatory. Derogatory is where you're going to get your lead in as to who's trying to collect against you, and usually that's pretty damn accurate. But your actual credit report should come from here, because it's going to be very concise, it's going to say the start date and so on. Now, keep in mind, companies will fake the start date. I've had it happen to me. And what they do is, for example, your account closed in February of 2017, and they wrote it off in, say, August of 2017, right? And that's when they sold it to the credit bureau, or the credit collection company. And the collection company, and this is where we're going to get into FDCPA in just a second, I promise. And you're going to love the stuff you're going to learn there. Oh my God, the FDCPA is like, it's my jam. Hi. So the FDCPA, that controls the collecting companies, but doesn't control them all the time, and you're going to have to do your due diligence against collection companies, because collection companies break the rules left and right all the time, and they operate just on the outskirts of the rules. They are very horrible people. I don't think they have souls. They're like car salesmen, and if you're a car salesman, it's okay. Go to church. You can get your soul back. I don't respect either one of those, because they thrive off of the loss or taking money from other people. Whether or not it's legitimate or anything, the more they cost you, the more money they make. So I don't respect them, and I don't respect people that represent those types of companies. But getting your free credit report is very important. It is very, very important. You should do it once per year. You get it free. And if you go to Credit Karma, you can see who's trying to collect against you, but you can't see your actual credit score. I can't click this because I've sued them. So I have to go through the actual credit bureaus, or I have to follow Credit Karma. And that's because my account is flagged. And if you're wondering, is that retaliation? Absolutely it is. But they validate it by saying, okay, we want to have your account properly controlled. And basically what they're saying is, we don't want you to try and sue us again because you might actually get lucky. And they've been doing it for a long time, which is how they know when issues are coming about. But the collection company, what they can do to change the date, and I know I'm jumping off on tangents, work with me, I'm on the spectrum. That also means I'm extraordinarily thorough. And I remember numbers, and not usually names, but like cases and such. I remember information for years and years and years and years. It's just part of being on the spectrum. But these companies, they will change the date. So they started collecting in August. And they said, oh, you haven't done this in 30 days, so September, they can take you to the credit bureaus. But what they can do too is, if they change the date, they can change the date to, oh, we're going to insert this correction. No, we told him February of 2009 or 18. I've seen this happen. That's happened with me. That's part of the reason I sued. I've had more lawsuits than I should have, but at the same time, I also believe in fighting when there's a wrong instead of just bending over and taking it. So these companies will sometimes change the actual date. Keep an eye on it. Go to Credit Karma. It's basically free. And you can see the updates. Take a screenshot. Don't know how to do a screenshot? Cool. I'm going to show you something really freaking neat. There is new. No. Alright, so this right here is Snipping Tool. And if you go down to your... that's Cortana. Oh, it's over there. But there is... Haha! Snipping! And Snipping Tool. Pretty freaking awesome, right? Anywho, so this Snipping Tool, if you hit New, you highlight this, then boom. Now that's going to, and what you can do up here is you can either save it or you can copy it. That's very important. So, you got your Snipping Tool, and I don't want to save it, but I'm going to close it. That Snipping Tool right there, you can expand it to include your entire screen. Woo! And you know what? If you want to catch the time and date, boom, just take it all the way down. That right there is going to be a form of recourse for you. And it's a very important form of recourse. Very important. So, your Snipping Tool, it's built into every Windows system. Every one of you has it. But if you don't know if you don't like the Snipping Tool, what you can also do is you can hold down your Control key, and on the top right of your keyboard, where like F11, F12 is, to the right or sometimes above that, you will see Print Screen. If you hit Control, Print Screen, then all you have to do is go into an email or a document or some kind of picture editor and paste. So right-click Paste or hit Control V. Those are called hotkeys, for those of you that aren't familiar with it. And those hotkeys are extraordinarily valuable. Seriously valuable. Seriously valuable. So if you can ever learn hotkeys, great. But know your credit report, run your credit report, and always run it before you dispute. Because if you don't, then you're going to be cut off from your credit report. Now let's go a little bit further into this. FDCPA, Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. I'm going to give you just a high-level overview because it's a very long document and I do highly recommend reading it. I mean, it's boring. It's boring as sin. And if you want to go to YouTube and look it up, that's perfectly fine too. In fact, I've learned a lot of obscure things, so if you see something weird on my YouTube thing, whoo, haha, lucky. But no, I research all sorts of things. Ancient aliens, like, oh, really? Is that a thing? So, we are going to do FDCPA. No. This one right here is probably a good resource. Ah, here we go. This one right here is 1 hour and 23 minutes. That means it's going to be a good lecture. And these people right here, they're doing the same things that I'm talking about. Difference is they're probably going to be touching on a much higher level, and they're going to be doing more of a step-by-step process. You've got this one right here, FDCPA training program. But the gist of the FDCPA is it controls collection companies. So collection companies can't say, "You're broke, you're a loser," like they used to do. They actually used to do that. For all you millennials out there that weren't old enough to be around when this law wasn't in place. But they used to call early in the morning, and then they would call throughout the day. People would have to take their phones off the hook to keep them from ringing. And they would call back, and they would be harassing. They would call people bums. They would do everything that millennials would rage against the machine about. Sadly, I'm on the tail end of millennial. I technically qualify on the loose definition of what a millennial is. Yeah. But essentially, they can't call you. We're going to summarize it to the new stuff. Okay? I'll just type it here. Ooh, that is shit. You see this thing I'm hovering over right now? That is shit. Don't listen to this. That is shit. The letter I showed you, which, go ahead and look back. That letter is extraordinarily important because it is written in the right way. There are a lot of people out there that are claiming, "Hey, use this credit letter." And that's not going to be the case. Now, first thing too is you should be fixing your credit yourself. You should not be hiring a firm, any of those ones that, you know, I'm about to sneeze. Alright, so any of those companies that say, "Well, fix your credit," like Lexington Law Firm, don't trust them. Because what they do is they send out these credit letters that dispute everything that could be disputed about, like they will get it removed temporarily because they'll be seen as frivolous. If any of your reinvestigations seem frivolous, which is why I told you on this letter over here, don't include this yellow stuff in your first one, is because if you repeat the same argument twice, then the credit bureaus can call it frivolous and they are under no legal obligation to research it. Follow me on this. This is extraordinarily important. Because if you use the same argument twice, they call it frivolous, then they can ignore every one of your future arguments. I mean, you can still hold them accountable if you change your wording and so on. But they can list it as frivolous, meaning you're reaching for straws, and most judges will back them up. Which is a damn sad thing, in my opinion. But then again, judges are just regular people, just like cops are regular people, and they all fuck up, usually more than we do, because they have the extra protections and they think they can get away with it. I've actually had to report one judge already. And I don't expect anything's going to come from it unless 18-1 people report him too. And the only people that know how to report judges are lawyers or people that do their research. So the more you educate yourself, the better off you're going to be. I swear to God. This is not a lie. This is not a joke. Educate yourself. Learn this stuff. It's going to protect you. Now, the FDCPA says that they cannot call you until, I think it's 8 o'clock in the morning. They call you earlier than that. And they know where you live. Meaning, let's say, I used to live in Arizona. Now I moved here. Well, Arizona's an hour ahead. Okay? If they call me at 8 o'clock Arizona time, they are right because I did not correct them. Now, during the call when they wake me up at 7 o'clock in the goddamn morning, or 6 o'clock in one case, I have to correct them. I have to let them know, no, I live over here. And at that point, you can give them your address, but you are going to get letters, and if they ever want to get indignant, they could potentially go after you. And if it's a high enough dollar amount and they think you have it, then they will go after you. They will go after you legally. And if you're in a different state, guess what? You have to go back to the original state because that's where the transaction occurred. You can't switch them over to your new state. Fun little facts here. And keep in mind, if you ask me any questions, I am more than happy to answer them. I really am. I swear to God. Because I've done a lot of research into this. I've taken lawyers on head-to-head and I've won. Many times. Not many, I would say more than my fair share. Definitely more than anybody I know. That's guaranteed. The only people that have argued in court more than me are the one super wealthy millionaire who has a software company and my lawyer friends. And that's just because I don't like to bend over and take it. And for those of you out there that do like to do that, or for those of you that want to take me entirely out of context, go ahead. My intentions are clear here about using an idiom and a metaphor versus the actual. So you should get it, but if you don't, pick up a book and read it. Anyway, going back to the FDCPA. So if they call you after, if they call you consecutively, that's harassment. They call you too early in the morning, that's harassment. They call you too late at night, meaning after, I think it's 7 o'clock p.m. your time, or the time that they believe that you are in, that's inaccurate. Some states only, like for example, think Arizona is a one-party consent state. Don't quote me on that, I don't remember. But there are some states that are called one-party consent states. And what I have on my phone is Call Recorder. It's an app, and it automatically records every single call that comes to me. Now, in one-party consent states, you can actually record the blatant abuse or verbal abuse or whatever is being done by the credit bureau or by the credit collection company, and you can hold them accountable. But those are only in one-party consent states. But what you can do, if they're repeatedly calling or calling too early or calling too late, you can just simply go to whatever cell phone or phone service you have and pull up your call records. That right there is enough to take them to court and get them the hell off your back. You can also send those call records with, you know it's coming, you know it's coming, it's together! And you send it off with this. And you show them a screenshot, a printed screenshot, mailed in or emailed in or so on with this. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, oh, they've blatantly violated this, and if we don't take it off, well then we are complicit in violating the FDCPA, and we are ourselves violating the FCRA. I'm not going to tell you which clauses because half of you aren't going to look it up. But that's essentially how that circle works. There are also different, for example, if a collection agency, you notice how they have to verify your identity first? That's because sometimes people were answering the phone that were not the person trying to collect. They would say, oh, I'm here. And if they don't verify your identity, or if you say, I'm him, and or her, or I'm her, then they would start telling information that would be considered federally protected and private. And that is a very, very huge thing these days. And I'll go into HIPAA laws and privacy laws and security and all of that in another video. Because again, I've spent hours and hours and hours over years studying this stuff. But essentially, the FDCPA, I would look through the truncated versions. So, FDCPA rules. Rules of debt collection. This is probably a good one. And this one right here is probably a good one too. Okay, you see how I'm looking? I'm just showing you where to research and where to get it video format. But if you were to look up FDCPA rules, are there laws that limit what debt collectors can say and do? Consumerfinance.gov. It's very, very hard to knock a .gov site. And then, boom, starts breaking it down. Time and place. They can't call your employer and collect from you. They used to do that. In fact, when I worked at CheckSmart, we were instructed to do that because that was still legal at the time. And that was back when I was 22. So 10 years ago. Representation by an attorney. This is awesome right here. So if a debt collector knows that an attorney is representing you about the debt collector generally must stop contacting you. And one thing you can do to get a debt collector off your back is you can also write up a cease and desist letter. I'll cover that in another video because a cease and desist letter, I want to have an example for you of what it should look like and how to go about giving a cease and desist letter. But for now, representation by an attorney, if you say you're represented by an attorney, most collection companies will not talk to you in any way, shape, or form until you notify them, I am no longer represented by an attorney. And at that point, they're going to bend you over and they're going to start spanking you. Because they know that you won't know shit. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen, and I've been, sadly, a member of CheckSmart. I was trained to be a manager there. And the store that I was going to take over hadn't gotten finished yet. And I had to do a lot of collection. It's not something I'm proud of. And nobody in a collection agency should be proud of it. Because, or at least if you do it right, if you're respectful and whatnot, yeah, be proud. But if you don't do it right, and I'm not proud because anything payday loan related it's predatory in any shape. It's very, very predatory, and I don't endorse it. It's why Arizona made payday loans illegal, and why a lot of states do that. It's because it was, I wouldn't say exacting, and I wouldn't say extorting, but essentially people would come in every week and pay $50 not to pay off the debt, not to pay off the loan, but to just carry it forward to the next paycheck. People would be paying $4,000 or $5,000 on a $400 loan. Not joke. That's not a joke. There was one lady that all the months I was there, she always had these unique outfits. She was a little skinny thing. Very cute. Very, very cute. She was married, I think, to this other guy who looked just as homeless as she did. Or eclectic. I'll use the word eclectic. And they were coming in every 2 weeks and paying $50 the entire time I was there. They never paid it off. It's very predatory, and I don't appreciate those companies. Going back to this, because sorry, I have stories for days, like seriously stories for days. I've seen some shit that people wouldn't believe that they were right beside me. So, an attorney representing you, when an attorney represents you in a court of law or outside of a court of law, they are you. They are your standing representation. They are your mask. They are your agent. You have no say at that point except to speak to them. That's essentially, like, that would be the perfect relationship for a lawyer. Having known many, and being very close to a couple. And the reason being is they know their job. They know their job really damn good. You don't. You might think you do, but you don't. It would take years because every person who becomes a lawyer is essentially earning a doctoral degree. Okay, they have the equivalent of a PhD, but it's PLLC, if I remember right. Don't quote me. But no, PLLC is something different. It's a structure of a company. But Esquire, to earn the name Esquire, that's a protected title, just like doctor. Okay, you can't go around saying, I'm a doctor. No, you will get fined and locked up. And if you do anything, you will get super locked up. If you do anything posing as a true expert. These people are doctors of their field. They are doctors of law. So to be a lawyer, you have to be highly credentialed and highly experienced, and they don't let just anybody get out. You can't just go over and take the bar exam, otherwise I would have already done it. Okay? I would have studied for it last year, and I would have taken it already. But you have to actually go to the school, and you have to be... There's a lot of requirements to have a law degree. So if you ever have a lawyer, step the fuck back, You're talking to them, they do all the talking for you. And if you don't trust that lawyer, if you see mistakes or whatnot, call it out, and if you have to, recuse that lawyer. Or remove that lawyer, I'm sorry. Judges recuse themselves and lawyers can recuse themselves. But if dismiss or fire that lawyer and seek new representation, and if you're in court, make sure that the judge gives you time to find adequate counsel that can have time to catch up to the case. FDCPA. So, what it says right here, this is very accurate. Warning, telling a debt collector to stop contacting you does not stop them. That's absolutely correct. They can't talk to other people about your account unless you authorize them. Never authorize them. Okay? They cannot call you at work. They cannot call you in places, like they will establish, how to say this, if they call your references, it's only to track you down. They can't give any information out. If they do, the debt is invalid, and you can have it taken completely off your credit report permanently. Same thing if they call you too early, same thing if they call you too late, and so on. They can do a lot of things. And they also have sample letters right here that you can use to respond to a debt. So let's open this up. Do I owe the debt? Da, 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 da. This is just a cursory overview. So just use my letter, okay? Just use this one that I got from a lawyer who works in this field, who is a doctor of law and works specifically in this field. Okay? Use this letter given to me by a lawyer to handle their lawyers, essentially, and to catch them in a mistake. But the FDCPA, if you find any violation, you can prove it. All you have to do is forward it with your complaint. You don't even have to enter any of this section right here. I mean, you can. In fact, you could delete this, boom, and then replace this with the company has violated the FDCPA. Please see attached. And if you have that proof, then all of a sudden your life becomes easy. That debt gets removed. You're done. If you don't have the proof, then that is a problem, because without proof, you can't get it removed. And that's a fact of life. But I highly recommend watching the videos and do the same searching I just showed you how to do. Okay? Watch the videos. Read the case law. Go through the ropes. Okay? That's going to make a huge, huge, huge difference in your ability to communicate with debt collectors or to get anything negative removed from your credit report. Anyway, I'm going to talk a little bit more. Let's see. Fair debt collector. There's a time and a place, so they can't call at certain times. They can't call in certain places. They have to verify your identity. They can't call repeatedly. If they call more than 2 times, instant removal. All you got to do is pull up your phone records. You're done. And what's the last thing? Oh, they can't say anything derogatory. Now check this out. And that's why I say get call recorder. I'm going to show you something. Yeah, phone, if you die, I'm going to kill you. Haha, asinine. So there is a thing. So I can't show you the actual app on the inside because it's going to show phone numbers I don't want you to have. But we're going to show you on this bottom section right here. Right here. This is the icon for, let's see how close we can get, call recorder. Now I'm going to pull up on the Play Store call recorder so you can see exactly what it looks like. Having this, if you catch them in, if you're in a one-party state, cool. But you've got all these call recording apps when you type in call recorder. You see that? And then what we'll do is we'll scroll up and up. You've got all these call recording apps. The one that I recommend is this one right here. That's my jam. Now it'll save it to your SD card or your internal memory every call, which they're not huge. But if you have a Google Drive account, you can have it uploaded to your Google Drive account. And what they'll do is every 30 days they'll circulate through, so if you don't need to use it for any reason or whatnot, then you're good to go. Now it's a bit of a gamble, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion it's a bit of a gamble if you want to send that kind of recording with, like in a CD format or something to that effect, to the credit bureaus. But you can send a letter, like a separate letter. We'll just open up a new document. Blank document. At this time, let's say 8 a.m. in the morning, I was given a harassing call from an alleged creditor. You have the right to not incriminate yourself. That's why you say alleged. Excuse me. Because if you say actual creditor, then what could end up happening is that could potentially be interpreted later on down the road, if you ever need to enforce anything, as you claiming them as a creditor. You say alleged every time until it's absolutely proven and you have no leg to stand on. You say alleged every time, because guess what? If they can take anything and use it against you, they absolutely will. Alright, you got some shyster behind a desk who, if their numbers look better, they might one day get a promotion, and they have no problem fucking you over. None. They're like car salesmen, okay? They don't have souls. They really don't, okay? South Park Ginger, no soul. And they will blatantly come after you. I've seen it, I've experienced it. I've been a part of it, directing the team to do that. I was never that disrespectful, but some of my employees were. I'm not proud of it. Anyway, I was getting a harassing call from the alleged creditor. Let's go a little bit further. Please see. In fact, I'm going to make it put a comma because that's me. Please see the transcript below. Now what that does is, even though you've recorded that call and you can quote them verbatim, you can mention that you got a recorded call should this ever go to court. But what you can do, legally, is you can show them the transcript. And it's kind of hard to argue with that when you say, I also have my computer's acting up. Now, one thing I'm going to throw on here too, that sometimes throws people off, meaning a manager will throw them off. If it's a lawyer, usually not. And I have the phone recorded, or the call recorded on my phone in reciprocity. Now, what does reciprocity mean? If they say anything, this call is being monitored and recorded for quality assurance, or this call may be monitored and recorded. So when they say may, you don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. It could be permission, or it could be, well, we might record it, we might not. Who knows? Either way, by that statement, that the person coming on the line knows that the call is being recorded. Okay? Now they want to record it internally. I don't give you permission to do that. Well, it's called reciprocity. Now, this is a line that I will skate legally, because when it comes to reciprocity, if they're recording, I'm going to damn well record too. Okay, right now I'm holding my college to the fire because they misadvised me on my financial aid and they cost me a little bit extra, a couple thousand. And I'm holding on to that call because if I ever have to sue them, that's what's going to happen. I'm hoping that sharper heads will prevail. But to wrap this whole thing up, by saying you have the call recorded on your phone or in a file or something in reciprocity, that means they were already recording and you have the legal right to record as well. Because if they're recording, that means there's two-party consent. They know they're being recorded, you know you're being recorded. Now that is a legal gray area, and if you get the wrong judge, you'll lose any day of the week. But if you get the right judge, you can win. So it's very much dependent on the judge, and again, no two judges are different. If it's anything to do with the state, you lost the second you came in. Unless you can prove them otherwise, and they think that you can enforce them. If they say something illegal that they think you can enforce it, then you've lost. Every time you've lost. You walk into the courtroom, if you owe the state anything, or if it's anything to do with the state, you walk into the courtroom guilty until proven innocent. Every time. Every time. And if you talk to the right judge or the right policeman, they will tell you exactly that. I've heard a judge, an actual judge, guilty until proven innocent. And they were a small claims judge. And I talked to them off the record, which is why I'm not going to name their name. And I was shocked as hell that I actually got them to say that. But by saying that you have the call recorded in reciprocity, what that's going to do is that's going to make the alleged creditor pause. Like, oh, they really did catch us, and I don't want to pay fees? Alright, fine, F it. Because before, like in the past, creditors would pay to take a debt. They pay about half what the debt was worth. So if you owed $2,400, they would pay the original company, whether it's Sears or Honda, they would pay them half, or some bank, or giving you a bank loan. They'd pay half, so 12 grand, and then they would try to collect from you for 24 or more grand. Usually it's more. If it was 24, then you'd probably owe 30. And they would validate that with, oh, we've got internal fees and we've got holding fees and all of that. And the bank or the original creditor doesn't care, because they're going to take it as a tax write-off. Okay, bad debt is tax writable. They don't take any skin off their back unless everybody owes them. And I don't know of any company like that. So don't worry about it. They're going to get their money back from Uncle Sam. I mean, if you owe a debt, then pay the debt. But because they have a cap to how much they can write off each year. But yeah, if you're being disenfranchised, well, you don't have to necessarily listen to it. If you're being disenfranchised, you can take matters into your own hands. Legally. I am not talking about vigilantism. Nope, don't do that. But, I mean, you get where I'm going with this. So, having that in reciprocity, that's a gamble I'm willing to take. You would need to do some research, and you would need to learn about phone recordings and interpretive law and so on, if you wanted to go in that route. But if you wanted to just throw that in the letter, whether or not you have it, that sometimes will spook a collection agency. Not always, but sometimes. And you know what? I think I'm going to wrap it up there, because we only got 3 minutes left. But yeah, I hope this was educational for you. And I hope if you're watching this later on that this has helped you. I'm going to be putting this up on YouTube after I've cut it and, you know, shaved a few things. But I really do hope this helps you. So anyway, one last time, and we're going to do this fun ways, right? We're going to do this fun. Check this. Going down, boom, snipping tool. And you know what? I love the snipping tool, so right click. If you pin it to taskbar, like this thing I'm hovering over right here, it will always stay down there. So if you close it, like, boom, it's still down there. One click away, boom, it's here. Then you hit new, and take a screenshot of what you're seeing right now. Boom. Take that screenshot, and then come up here, save it, and say, credit dispute letter. That one right there, ooh, 2 minutes left. Okay, so that right there saves this so that you can just type it up in Microsoft Word or whatever word processing program you have. And when it says sincerely, just put your name. Now, one last thing I will tell you is when you're sending these letters in, if you're not doing it electronically and attaching this, with some cases you can fax, which faxzero.com is kind of my jam. I'll show you. No, I don't want you. So, fax, hold on, fax, dang it, get up there. Faxzero.com, you can send up to, I believe, 3 to 4, hold on. So you can send a total of 25 pages or 3 faxes. Okay. So right here, max 3 pages plus cover, max 5 times per day. So you can send 5 faxes up to 3 pages. And the 25 is if you want to pay $1.99 to send the fax. So that's a good way because they email you and they'll confirm, do you want to send this? You open up the email, yes, click. And you get to track, a new window will open up and it'll actually track. So if you hit refresh on the top corner, which is this little circle right here, but for Internet Explorer it would be over here. It would be on the right side, or Edge, Microsoft Edge. I'm not sure what Firefox is. Or you can click on the back and you can hit reload. Boom. And what it'll do on the status page is it will reload and let you know your status. But you're also going to get a follow-up email if it's been delivered successfully or if it hasn't been delivered. So Fax Zero, I love this one. Metro Fax is my number 2. But make sure that you send it through fax, or if you're mailing it, which is not something I recommend anymore. I recommend fax, but for TransUnion you have to do it electronically or you have to mail it. If you mail it, you have to spend $7, certified return receipt requested. So you've got a green form you're going to fill out and a white form with green on the outside. You've got to fill out both of those forms front and back in every area where it says where it's going and who you are. What that does is that shows that they received your dispute. And you're going to need the receipts in court. The receipt that's going to come back to you through mail once it's delivered, and the one that you've got on hand from when you went to the USPS office, United States Postal Office. You can usually do it at FedEx or UPS office, but sending certified where they have to sign for it, that gives you standing in court. That's called recourse. Recourse is essentially proof, evidence. But recourse encompasses evidence, but also encompasses a lot more things. Basically, it's proof or evidence to support your statement or standing. But yeah, I hope this was beneficial to you. I hope this helps you out. And I'll try to shorten it up. I'll try to clean it up and put it on YouTube right. So anyway, you folks take care, and I'll talk to you another time. Oh, how do I turn this down?